Exercise 18 deals with the endocrine system and the functional anatomy of the various endocrine glands. So the endocrine system is a communication system of the body. The nervous system is the other communication system. The difference between them is the nervous system is going to have a very quick response but short-lived. The endocrine system is a little bit slower to get up and running, but it's going to have a long-lasting response as compared to the nervous system. The endocrine system uses hormones, which are chemical messages. They are released by the gland and they will be transported through the blood to the target location. Hormones are going to control several different major processes. They can control things such as reproduction, growth and development. They can be involved with the body defenses. They regulate a lot of the metabolic processes and help to maintain homeostasis. The major endocrine glands include the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the parathyroid gland, adrenal glands, pineal gland, thymus gland, the pancreas, the gonads, which include the ovaries and the testes, and the hypothalamus. On this diagram, you can see the location of several of these glands, such as up in the brain, you've got the pineal, the hypothalamus, and pituitary. And then in the neck, you've got the thyroid and the parathyroid. And then in the sternum, the thymus. And then you've got around your kidneys, on top of them located are the adrenal glands. And then the pancreas is located right behind the stomach. And then the reproductive endocrine glands, the ovaries for the females, and the testes for the males. The pituitary gland, the hypothalamus, look at these first. The pituitary gland is very small, only about the size of a pea. It is connected excuse me, to the hypothalamus by a stalk, which is known as the infibulum. It's protected by the sphenoid bone. It has two lobes. There's the anterior pituitary, and then there's the posterior pituitary. So several different hormones are produced here, so it's often referred to as your master endocrine gland. The hypothalamus is going to produce several hormones that are involved with stimulating or inhibiting other hormones. And what happens is the hormones typically are going to be released and then stored to the posterior pituitary. So the hypothalamus makes oxytocin, an antidiuretic hormone. It's going to, like say, then it doesn't remain there. It releases it and stores it into the posterior pituitary. So they're made up here, and then they're going to move down to the posterior lobe. Now the anterior lobe itself does produce several hormones as well. In terms of the oxytocin, this is involved during one of the main things is when a woman is in childbirth and helping to stimulate the contractions of the uterus when she goes into labor. It can also help to stimulate the release of milk when she's breastfeeding. ADH, or antidiuretic hormone, is going to have target cells in the kidney. It is going to, as a diuretic, increases urine production. So an antidiuretic is going to decrease urine production, help conserve water to keep you from getting dehydrated. So what happens, as an example, with alcohol, it inhibits the ADH, so therefore you have increased urine output and you do have an issue of potentially getting dehydrated. One of the best ways for studying the hormones, I feel, is to write out the different glands, write a huge table. So you start with writing in one column the glands. In the next column, write the hormones that are secreted by those glands. And then in the next one, write what the target cell is. And then in the following column, write what the effect is. The anterior pituitary does produce several different hormones, as I said, and one thing you have to keep in mind is that some hormones will stimulate other hormones. So it's kind of like a cascading effect. So the anterior pituitary does produce prolactin and the growth hormone, and then it does produce several of these other hormones, such as the thyroid stimulating hormone, the follicle stimulating hormone. So this is where I'm seeing the cascade where it releases a hormone which is going to go to another endocrine gland to stimulate a hormone there. And that is what this table here is showing you. Hypothalamus secreting two hormones, which then get stored in the posterior pituitary and will be stimulated to release when needed. And then the anterior pituitary does release, as you see here, like the growth hormone, which is going, the target cells will be bones and muscles, prolactin, which is going to help stimulate release of milk when a woman is breastfeeding. But then you've got like follicle stimulating and luteinizing hormone, which are going to have effects on the testes and ovaries. The thyroid stimulating hormone, which is going to stimulate the thyroid, etc. The cascade effect. The thyroid gland is found at the base of the throat. Excuse me. It has two lobes to it, and there is a connection between those two lobes. It does produce the thyroid hormone and calcitonin. So as you can see here, this is the trachea in the front here, the larynx right here, and this is the thyroid right in here. So your heart is going to be right down here below the aorta. The parathyroid glands, there's typically 4 of them, 2 on each of the thyroid lobes on the posterior side. They do secrete parathyroid hormone. This is going to have different effects. It can stimulate the osteoclast to remove calcium from the matrix of the bone. It can help increase the levels of calcium in blood. It can help to stimulate the kidneys and intestines to absorb more calcium. So when calcium levels are low, you want to get that calcium level back high in the blood. The adrenal glands sit on top of the kidneys. There's 2 regions for them, the adrenal cortex and then the adrenal medulla, which the adrenal cortex is the outermost area, and then the adrenal medulla is the innermost area of these. So as you can see, the kidney is right here with the adrenal gland on top of it. Cortex outer, medulla inner area. There are the hormones that are produced here, epinephrine and norepinephrine. They have similar functions in that they are going to be triggered. They are both neurotransmitters. They're triggered with the sympathetic nervous division, that fight or flight. It's going to increase the heart rate, increase blood pressure, increase the glucose levels in the blood. It's going to dilate passageways in the lungs so you can increase your respiration rate. All of this is for that fight or flight. In the pancreas is in your abdomen. The pancreas is located, it's kind of tucked under the stomach and under the liver there, and it's a mixed gland. It acts as both exocrine and endocrine gland. The endocrine portion of it does produce 2 hormones, insulin and glucagon. The insulin is produced by the beta cells and the alpha cells produce glucagon. These are antagonistic to each other, meaning that they have opposite effects. It's helping to maintain proper levels of sugar in your blood. Levels of glucose in the blood need to be maintained very closely. You don't want them too high, but you also don't want them too low. And so insulin and glucagon are going to be helping to maintain those proper levels. So this is showing, here's the stomach, and so kind of tucked under and behind it is the pancreas, and then the small intestine is in front. The pineal gland is located in the brain. It does secrete melatonin. We talked a little bit about this with the nervous system. It helps to establish your sleep-wake cycles. Um, there are some who also feel that it may be related to fertility in humans as well. The thymus gland is located posterior to the sternum. It is largest in infants and children, and then it tends to get smaller, kind of shrinks in size as you get older. It is very important with the immune system, and uh, that is where what's known as your T cells, your T lymphocytes, they will mature in the thymus. And that's involved with the immune system for protection for you. The gonads, the sex organs for females, you have the ovaries. This is where the production of the ovum or the eggs occurs. And there are two hormones, the estrogens and progesterone, that are produced here. In males, the testes are producing the sperm and are also producing the androgens such as testosterone. The placenta, when a woman is pregnant, the placenta is going to help to maintain the pregnancy. It will produce these hormones, and that's how it's able to maintain the pregnancy. The placenta is not formed immediately. It does take several months for it to be completely formed and take over. Some of the hormones eventually will play a part in the delivery of the baby. It produces human chronogonadotropin, or HCG. It will also produce estrogen, progesterone, and other hormones, helping to maintain the balance, to maintain that pregnancy.